Welcome to the Autism Dad podcast. Thank you for being here. I appreciate that. We're going to have a follow-up interview today. So Justin Bowman was on the Seen and Heard series earlier this year, and there's a lot about what his journey led to that I wanted to kind of dive deeper into. So we did a whole another episode, and that episode is today. So we're going to talk a little more in depth with Justin about his journey. We're also going to focus on what he created for parents, VizyPlan, which I've been playing with for a while now, and it is freaking amazing. So you guys have picked a great show to tune into today, and I appreciate you. So here we go. Thank you for taking the time to be here. I really appreciate it. You were previously on a Seen and Heard episode, where we learned a little bit about what life is like for you as an autism family, and today we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that, and then we're going to talk about VizyPlan, because what you created is really it's very unique, and it's very helpful, and it's one of those things that, like, when I look at today, I wish you had done this 20 years ago. You know, because
well.
like it would have been so useful, but it can help people now, right? And so I feel like let's just connect people with a resource, and we'll go from there. So could you take a second and just introduce yourself, remind people kind of a little bit about who you are and kind of what you do, and then we'll dive a little deeper into your journey, and then talk more about the other stuff.
Sure. My name is Justin Bowman. I am the founder and CEO of VizyPlan, which is a visual routine and planning app for the neurodivergent community. A little bit about myself. I am married to a beautiful and wonderful wife. Her name is Danielle, and we have two amazing children. My daughter Peyton is 4, and my son is Sawyer, who is turning 6 in June.
And Sawyer was diagnosed with level 1 autism. We learned that in the Seen and Heard episode. What I always like to ask people, because the journey is so different from family to family, what was there something that you noticed that caused you to? I know you mentioned that your wife was a speech and language pathologist in the last episode, but like, how did you guys know to pursue an evaluation?
It's a great question. It's a little bit loaded because this is kind of past the typical norm here. So
Okay.
I had a dream before we had my son, and I remember waking up from that dream and telling my wife she was pregnant. I had a really weird dream where, like, we have a son and I can't communicate with him and he doesn't understand me. And then what was really unique about it was, like, he was like, I'm a very athletic, sportsy kind of person, and he was not that in this dream, and like we just weren't really bonding. And it almost made me tear up, because like I was like, we're about to have a baby boy, and what if that's true? And it was very foreshadowing, not in the sense that like we do have a great bond and like we can communicate together, but when he was born, I always had that in the back of my mind, of like that dream. I never forgot about that dream. And I am not clairvoyant. I am not by any means a medium or a psychic. This was just this one dream, and it stuck with me. When he was about the age of 9 months old, you can't, and you really, and I get it, like 2 years is usually when they first do their first evaluations, and that's when you go to the neuropsych and you could do all that. There was something, he was a colicky baby. So for the first 6 months of his life, he never stopped crying. So like anyone would start to be like, there's something, something going on here, but colicky doesn't by any means translate to autism or neurodivergence. It was just, our son just never stopped crying. And then right when 6 months hit, it just completely stopped. And we did everything. We did there's so many books out there. I think it was like the 5 S's and all the different things that you could try. And I remember just like always singing to him, and like my wife and I just taking turns and everything that we possibly could do. And then I was like, what if, like, it never lost my mind. Like, what if there's like, could he be autistic? Could there be something there? And it was right around 9 months where he was just so happy all the time after, like, once we got past the colic phase, it was just pure happiness. Like, but he had self-awareness that I've never seen before, where like a child at 9 months, 10 months, 11 months, 12 months like felt embarrassed for himself when he would do things. Like you could see it in his face, and he just was so self-aware. And it's incredible. Like everyone who knows him said, like they all see it in him. Like he's very self-aware child. And the typical stuff that I shouldn't say typical, but some of the cliche things that the eye avoidance, the communication gaps, because my son was nonverbal for a very long time, could not communicate. And when I say a long time, I don't want to like compare and throw it out there, because there are some children that they're still nonverbal, but for him, when he was 2.5 years like old, he was learning words, and like in it was a little behind. So again, not comparing behind to that natural norm, but for us, like what we anticipated.
And I want to point something out here real fast, just because I think I understand where you're going with this, and I just want to clarify with you that, you know, it's very relative, right? So if it's your kid and they've missed a milestone by 3 days, it's going to feel like 3 years, right? And so yeah. I always tell parents, like, don't downplay or feel like you have to whatever, because your experience is your experience, and what you feel is very valid and very real. Because like my son didn't speak until he was 4.5, and I mean I understand, I relate to what you're saying. I don't take offense to any of that. I mean, there's people out there that might, but I wish as a community, like we would just like stop policing.
Yeah,
stuff.
I agree.
Like just it was tough, and it sucked, and it's scary, right? You're a new parent trying to figure this stuff out, and like, you know. So I just wanted to point that out, because it's all relative.
It is. It's very relative, and like I said in the last episode, comparison is the thief of joy, and that's what we're always doing. And we're trying to hit these milestones, and we're trying to, well, this is what atypical, and this is what. So to get back to what you were looking for in this question here is, so with my son, where we noticed it, I would say that I noticed it before my wife did, just because I was so hyper focused on it from that dream, from these different scenarios that I had seen and noticed. That I remember right around like 1.5 years, I was like, we should probably set up an evaluation at this point, because all of the neuropsychs in our area, they book out months and months in advance, and you got to get on a waiting list. And I remember it was not an easy conversation. My wife's a speech language pathologist. This is her life. This is what she does for a living at schools, is works with children. So it was never an easy conversation, because for me as an outsider into that world, I almost felt like I was constantly like, let's do this. I want to do this. Like, I want to know, I want closure. And from her perspective, it's like, I want to do the process. I'm familiar with the process. Like, let's see what's going on here. And I remember thinking that, like, the what if, right? That moment of like, what if he is autistic, and what will that be like? Because at this point in time, remember, he's not communicating the same way as other children are, and he's just such a happy kid. And it was just that moment where I was like, kind of like, what comes next? So I remember like almost like the counting down the days of that evaluation, and then the day came, and we had him evaluated by a very popular neuropsych in the area. And I remember you have to wait 2 weeks after for the results, and it was like waiting for the SATs to come back. It's like that moment, it's like, whoa, like, but you realize like nothing's gonna change. He's still an amazing child, and he's perfect in every way that, you know, he is my son. But I was craving for that closure.
And it's funny, because like it seems like it's a lot of hurry up and wait is what I remember. Like you'd go in, even when I had my ADHD evaluation, I was 44, something, 44. And I had to do like 2 months of testing. And then it took like another month just for them to interpret the test, right? And that month felt like I'd waited 44 years to get tested for this, right? I had no idea. It felt like I had to wait twice as long just to get the results back.
It's so
Because
true.
like it feels like there's so much hanging on it. Like you said, like nothing changes really. I mean, you're the same kid, but then at the same time, it's like everything changes
Everything.
because you now have a label that opens doors that previously were locked. So the calculus kind of changes,
Hmm.
and while they're still the same exact kid, now you're worrying about interventions or
Yeah.
supports and stuff like that. Because before it was like you whatever, like you could just kind of, but now it's real. It makes it real, and that weight is excruciating. Well, but
It's
there's people like in Ohio who are on a 3-year wait list just to get evaluated. It's insane. I just I don't know.
it's true. And you brought up a good point. Like it opens doors, right? It's a different calculus. It's a different scenario. And I just remember it's that moment, right? You sit in the office, you're sitting across from the neuropsych, and they tell you your son has autism. And it's that moment of like heavy news, but it's like, okay, so like I'm a planner. I'm like, let's get action. Like, what do we need to do next? Like, what can I like XYZ? My wife, she lives this world. I'm very blessed because of the fact that she knows all this stuff, and I can just be like tap on the shoulder, be like, okay, so what does this mean? What's going on here? Not everyone has that. There's a huge gap today in resources where people don't always know like what to expect next, and like that's where your podcast comes in to give all this information and spread the word. But I just remember thinking that at that moment, like I'm a Mr. Fix It, so like I'm gonna create something that like will help my son. I'm going to do something that will make his life easier, and I don't want him to ever struggle. Like as a parent, you never want your kids to struggle, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's gonna, it's part of the lifestyle of, and will come because he's not going to follow those milestones that we mentioned, right? He's not going to hit the things that other kids hit at certain paces and times, and that's okay. And like I just want him to know that's okay, and like I want to have some resourcing that can make him realize, or not make him, but help him realize that it is okay, and actually he's very special. So yeah.
You know, I was just thinking about this, and just like I mentioned this in the intros for the other episode too. Like I know you, right? And so you're talking about the way that you reacted to this, and I'm like, okay, that checks. Like I get that, uh, because we're both like techies,
Hmm.
and so does this analogy make sense to you when we're trying to compare like uh autistic brains to like neurotypical brains? With neurotypical brains, it's like ones and zeros, right? Like
Hmm.
it's very standard kind of. And I'm wondering if with autistic brains, if it's more like quantum computing,
Yeah.
because it can be a 1 and a 0 at the same time.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Or uh, where it sort of takes us outside of the way that we normally would think about something, and I think it makes it hard for people to kind of wrap their heads around, because like, you know, your kid could be doing a certain behavior that would be triggered by a 1 or a 0, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
In a whatever. But our kids, it could be anything, and it could be something today, and then that never bothers them again. Like there's no, the predictability of things, I think is a lot harder, and there's a lot of things that coexist inside of that autism diagnosis that just makes it complex, and there's so much nuance uh to this
Yeah.
stuff. And it just made me think of that when
No, and
you
you
were
bring
saying
up
that.
a good point that their brains are just so special, and it's not a binary pattern always. It's and to your point of like it being quantum, uh, almost quantum computing in the sense that it's like it's coming from multiple strings in multiple areas, and my son has cognitive delay, he has receptive delay, and like I said, he was nonverbal for quite a long time. So for us, in that scenario, it's amazing when he comes out and he says, you remember on April, that, you know, that Tuesday, blah blah blah. He gives a date, and he gives us a very specific scenario that I don't remember that detail at all, and he just pulls it out of the thin air, and I'm just like, that to where you're talking about, you know, quantum computing and how
Yeah.
processes are not always a binary path. Like it's incredible how his brain works, and it's actually, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Beautiful Mind, but it
Yeah.
really does have that kind of stylistic thinking, and that just like, it's not out of the box. It is a beautiful creation, and it's so special how his mind works.
Yeah. That's, you know, trying to help people understand some of these things, and even parents who are wrapping their heads around it. And you mentioned something too that was that I can relate to is being like a fixer,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Yeah.
dads specifically tend to be fixers, and they see a problem, and it's like, okay, like you're like, what can I build to make
Yep.
his life easier? What can I do to do this? What do I need to do to take this away from him, or to make the playing field leveled, right? Because we mentioned
Yes.
in the last episode about level playing fields. And I mean, there are real limits I mean, these aren't things that can be fixed, right? They're things that can be accepted and understood and navigated. But I mean, fixing implies that something is broken, and
Correct.
it's just different. You know, and again, like we've mentioned before many times, just to be clear, like everybody is different, right? And so what I dealt with say Elliot, my now 19-year-old, oh my God, he's 20.
It's incredible.
He just turned 20 this month. Yeah, so he's 20 now.
Congrats.
Thanks.
Exciting.
I'm so old. But like, you know, he could struggle with like emotional regulation. Like anxiety is a huge thing for him, but he's one of the most emotionally intelligent people that I've ever known, right? And the most observant, even though it overwhelms him, he picks up on everything, right? Like, so it's just so hard. It's so hard to navigate some of this stuff. But I appreciate what you said.
No, and it's true though, because my son also, like as we mentioned, he is so sensitive and such a happy, loving person, but he also has that emotional regulation struggle, and he has that anxiety. And like in the last episode, we talked quite a bit about this, but uh, it's interesting because, again, that comparison, that thief of joy, but you wanted to talk about, like, do people understand? And like, my son will come into our bedroom in the middle of the night because he is in pure terror panic, um, just anxiety up the wazoo, and like every parent's like, you need to put them back in their bedroom right away. Like they need to,
Oh yeah,
you know, or Ferber method, whatever it may be, whatever you're working on. And it's like every scenario is unique. Like my son, you can't just put him back in the bedroom and just walk away. Like he's not going to understand that. Like is he doesn't have that regulation tool to be able to just, okay, I'm calm, and this is how I do it. Like you try those methods, and it's like having a newborn again. You're back in, and then you come back to bed, and he's back in 5 minutes, and then you're there and for an hour, and then you're back in, and then it's like we tried that. Every kid is so unique, and you can't compare um at all. But like you just triggered that to me when you mentioned the emotional regulation and anxiety, because that's something we deal with on a daily basis.
yeah. It is tough, and I'm like 20. My oldest is 26 now, and so you know there were plenty of times where people were like, "Oh, well, you just need to go do this," or just have you tried this? And it's like, dude, I have tried everything. And if it were that simple, if it were just a discipline thing or just put him back in bed, I would have done that a long time ago. There's no payout for me to struggle, right? Like, and they're certainly not benefiting from it. And, you know, they could say, well, you know, kids just need to learn to whatever. But what your son is experiencing is a very real level of terror. Like he is really in distress, and just shoving him back into bed is almost cruel
It
under
is.
those
He's
conditions, right? Like they don't
wrenched in.
understand that. Yeah, that's my son used to have night terrors,
Yeah.
and that there was nothing you could do. You couldn't wake him up. You couldn't do anything. You just had to be there and make sure he didn't hurt himself. And
Yep.
that was awful. It
It
was
is.
awful.
It's tough. It's And again, not comparing my son to the atypical or comparing lifestyles, but like this is like it just draws back to the conversation we had previously, where it's like, do people always? I think people are understanding and to a point, but it's like they're not. You just can't compare. It's different lives. It's you just want people to just understand, like as best they can, that you're in a different path, you're in a different journey, and not everything's going to work the same for everybody.
You know, maybe the way that I should phrase that going forward is like, I do think that there is a lot of positive connection within the community, but I think that some of the nuance, which on the outside may seem very simple, is so much more incredibly complex beneath the surface. And,
Mm-hmm.
and so, you know, I think that leads to some of the confusion and some of the comparisons and stuff like that we talked about before. And we have to stop doing that.
We do.
You know, it just doesn't serve a purpose. Um, so, so what was the process for you? Like accepting the diagnosis. I mean, because it seems like you kind of picked up on it, and then the dream that you had, which I get. I've had stuff like that where it just sort of, it's real enough that it makes you really stop and like think about what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just a sign or it's intuition or, you know, whatever it is. But it pointed you in the right direction.
It actually it gave me the ability to prepare myself for what potentially
Yeah.
could happen. And not I don't want to say I was panicked because I was never in a state of panic, but my wife and I will research, we'll look for things, we'll look for resources, we'll get ready, and I will prepare. I'll plan and I'll figure out a path of like what I can do to help my son succeed. So like that did at least it got me ready for that and that that mental state and sense, yeah.
So let me ask you this, because a lot of dads, you know, you mentioned like you're very athletic, very sportsy, and when our kids are diagnosed, a lot of times those, it feels like those dreams kind of wash away, right? Because
Yeah.
it may not be the way that you originally thought it was going to be. A lot of dads struggle with that. How did you navigate that and find peace with like what was instead of what you thought would be?
I'm still navigating it, man. I'm still navigating it. So I coach varsity hockey as well, in Massachusetts, and I played three sports growing up, and for me, sports was always life. And my wife would say to me, her worry was our daughter, who's 4, Peyton. She's very athletic already. She's very like hand eye coordination's there. Likes to play catch. Likes to do sports, do gymnastics, things of that sort. So her big concern was, are you going to gravitate in that direction? And that was my big concern from that, pulling back to that dream where I felt like I couldn't always relate to my son in that dream. And it's actually given me an ability to make sure that I always check myself. Like, okay, it's okay. It's okay if he doesn't play sports, and if he does, great. Uh, but I really enjoy his mind, and like when he plays and like he goes into this space and he just creates this world for himself, and I'm there with him doing it. So like we're not playing catch necessarily, we're not playing hockey, even though I built a hockey rink in the backyard for the kids and he'll put on skates and stuff, but it's you could tell it's not necessarily his thing right now, and that's completely okay because I want to meet him where he is. So like what he likes and what he enjoys, I'll sit down, and if even if it's not something that I would typically be like, "Oh, I'm really excited to do this." I'm excited because he's excited and he's so passionate about what he's doing, and I just love being in that moment with him. So like was it hard at first? I don't necessarily think it was hard because maybe I prepared myself for it, but did I always dream of like, oh, I'm gonna have a son and we're gonna play baseball together, and we're gonna do hockey, and we're gonna do these things together? Sure, every dad probably does, or most dads may. But to me, I didn't lose a step over it. I didn't lose sleep over it because I was very excited to just be there with him and enjoy the things he likes to do.
That's what it was like for me. Um, I never, like, I played soccer my whole life, all the way through college or to college.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there were a lot of things that I envisioned doing with my kids. But that was never a hang up for me in the moment, because like once I knew, like for me, it was more about helping them to live the best life that they could be. And, and it's about what makes them happy, not necessarily what makes me happy. And so, you know, I had to learn to adjust my expectations, not project what I thought my kids might be feeling, because that's how I would feel. Like,
Sure.
do you know what I mean? And it really, it's just a shift that I think a lot of dads struggle with. And I don't know if it's just a fixer mentality, or if it's just a not letting go, or when dads can't, there's nothing to fix, or you can't fix it. We don't know what to do.
That's
It's like, what are we supposed to do? Like, I can't fix this. How do I help him? Or then you start to feel like a failure, like you're letting them down, or like all the stuff that I hear from dads all the time, and moms. And I think the way that you went about this was really healthy. And the only thing I can remember, I talked to a mom years ago who said that, you know, the adjustment period for her was not so much about learning who her son was. It was more about like adjusting who she was, like growing as a person so that she could meet her son where he was, like you were talking about. And I think a lot of times there's a disconnect, right? Like, you know, there's so many twists and turns on this journey. And I think sometimes we miss, you know, the exit ramp to acceptance or whatever. Right. And we have to take a detour in order to loop back around. And it just takes time, and everybody's different. And, you know, I just think like the way that you explained it, I think really helps moms, especially, to understand where the dads might be coming from, because there is a disconnect there. And it's really interesting too, because like I've done episodes where like I'd interview you and ask you the same set of questions. Then I would interview your wife, ask her the exact same set of questions. You guys were in the same space at the same time, experiencing the same thing, but in a completely different way. Like your takeaway from everything is different. And it's really interesting to see how that is, because it helps you to understand that we're all impacted in different ways. And you know, we can all, whatever, but,
I completely agree.
So how is he doing today?
He's great. He is the happiest kid. Everything's always a joke. He's always trying to make people laugh. He does have that follower mentality that we talk about. So like he goes and gravitates towards the person with the highest energy. So he's, you know, he's in daycare, and he did an extra year. So this is the year before kindergarten that we're doing, and he'll always gravitate towards those kids in class that are just like, let's go on the slide, let's go on the playground, let's go run here, let's go do this, let's play tag. He loves that. So like he's gonna be running after them, and like and kids love him because he's just so accepting
Agreeable.
of everyone, and he just like, who wants to be everyone's friend, and he just wants to make people happy, and he's always so self-aware. So like if he does something that's embarrassing, like he immediately like pulls himself away from that and gets really like nervous and like anxious. And it's like, buddy, it's okay. Like it's okay to be nervous. It's okay to be anxious. Like that, if this is a normal, you know, it happens. This is a scenario that'll happen. So like,
welcome to humanity.
yeah, exactly. So for him, where he's at right now is he's just really enjoying life, hates school. He hates school because it's the learning aspects that he just, they're difficult for him. So like his fine motor he does struggle with it here and there. His receptive and cognitive, as I mentioned, is a little bit lower. So for him, it takes him a little bit longer to understand tasks, to be able to take direction, to be able to then take that direction and apply it and implement it into his routine or what he's working on. And that is also a area where, like, for him in his daily life, that he's working on with himself, and you can tell that he's trying to work on things. But you can see, like, when he's told to do a smiley face, he'll start the smiley face, and then he'll look to see who's watching, and then if he feels like he's being judged, he'll just turn it into a tornado, and he'll be like, that's my smiley face. And it's like, because he doesn't feel like he's adequate enough to do that. And it does crush us as parents, because like that's that social emotional, that's that he feels like he may not be adequate, and he's so self-aware where he'll just get himself out of that scenario real fast, and he'll be like, no, no, and that's where as parents we try and work with him, and he's seeing a counseling therapist now, and like trying to help work on his like not work on his emotions, but be able to express his emotions, and realize that he is amazing. So for him right now and where he's at is really just like trying to learn who he is, and realize that he should be okay with that because he's such a beautiful person.
You know, there's something that I've been doing a lot of research on recently, because I think it applies to me specifically. But there's something called RSD, rejection sensitivity dysmorphia, I think is what it is.
Yep.
It sounds similar to what you're talking about, where like it's like people with body dysmorphia, right? They see themselves in some way that the rest of the world doesn't, right? But you can't change how they whatever. And there are people who fear rejection or struggle with the rejection, and rejection could be anything, like a critical comment or whatever. It's how sensitive they are to it and how they perceive it, and how the fear of that or trying to avoid that influences decisions. Yes. And tornadoes and a smiley face kind of thing, because you don't want to hear, right? So that's I'm trying to learn more about that, because I think it's something that relates to me specifically, and it's interesting to hear that. So all of this journey has led you to recognizing needs within like your own family, for example, and then also expanding that to the needs of other families who are going through situations like you are, and it led you to create VizyPlan.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about VizyPlan and what it is, and why you created it, what inspired it, and all that stuff.
Oh, it's a very loaded question.
I know, it was a lot crammed into that one.
There,
yeah. Let's go one at a time.
Yeah, no, VizyPlan is at its basis a visual routine and planning app. And the inspiration behind it is my son. We actually, in theory, I like to say we built it together, because I can remember throughout him growing up, we would be in scenarios where we have to go to a grocery store, right? And he would not be able to understand that. And we're sitting outside of like Target or Walmart or Home Depot, wherever we may have been, and we can't go in the store because he's in the car screaming. And it's a real life scenario. Like, we can't get out of the car and bring him into the store, because you asked before, do people understand this? They won't understand that, because it's like, well, just, take your kid out of the store. He's having a panic attack or a tantrum. It's like, no, he just doesn't understand what's going on. And this is anxiety because of that. So there were times where it'd be like an hour in the parking lot with my wife and I, and he was just not able to regulate and comprehend it. So we started off with what all parents are given as the original playbook. It's like, start creating stick figures and laminated cutouts, and take his favorite toys and bring them with you, and show him through a series of what you can show him. And at some point, like, we had a 3-ring binder with I might have been over like 300 images that we could flip through real quick to be like, this is what we're doing next. And it's great, but it's not practical, and life changes, and you go from one thing to the next. And I remember another scenario. We were at my sister's house, and we're in the other room with my child. This is his aunt, and because there's people here that he doesn't know, and like, he wasn't ready for a party scenario, and it wasn't even a big party. It was just a small family get together with like maybe 15 people, and he just sat in the other room, and we cried. Like, he had a moment where he just couldn't go in there until he finally, we did everything we possibly could, which is like, the grasps, the holds, the help him feel calm, all the techniques that you're taught through early intervention, and all the different people that you work with. And I just felt helpless. Rob. Like, I didn't know what that fix it mentality in me is like. This isn't something to fix, but is there something that I can help him with? And I just remember thinking like, okay, I work in product, I work in tech. Is there something that I can build that could potentially help with this scenario? Because I would have paid any amount of money to help him, any amount of money. And I just remember, like, at that moment, starting to do research and doing what I possibly could. And I needed technology to catch up, and it did. It caught up in a great way. And I understand that AI is a very controversial thing, but if you can use it for good, like, it's so powerful if you use it in the right measures. And I'll never forget the first moment when I took my son's image and I put him as the hero character doing what we were doing next and showing him that moment. And then it was real for him. He was excited. He's like, that's me. And we're going to there. And I'm like, yeah, buddy, that's what we're doing. And he just lit up. And I was like, this might be something. This is, I should, I should work on this. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure out, like, what are the pain points that he's feeling, and what he's going through, and I'm going to develop something that's going to help my son. So I went to work, and I remember it was June of last year, and I came up with the idea that I was going to build out something for my son, and it was going to help him. Like, that's what my mission was. And I started working on it in December finally, because I was doing a lot of research and figuring out what I needed to do. And I remember it was right around Christmas and Hanukkah, in that holiday season. And I was like, I've got something. Like, it's we're there. And we started using it all the time. Like, every activity that changed, he saw himself doing it. And my wife, being the speech language pathologist, she's like, I bet you other kids could use this. Like, we're seeing it work on our son. Like, why not open it to other people? And I was like, me being vulnerable and like, I don't know. Like, so my wife knows all of the alphabet soup, the OTs, the SLPs, the BCBAs, the neuropsychs, and we opened it to our community and we did a beta, and people loved it. They were just like, the activities are great. I could use it for my prep for my next client. Like, this is great because they can see what's going on. And then the feedback flooded in, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I was like, oh, this is what I could fix. This is what I could tweak. And I just remember, just nonstop at night, because I work a full-time job. I'm like, at night and weekends, I'm sitting here coding and trying to figure out, like, how to tweak this as best I could. And by January of January 19th, just remember, my son remembers dates and times. January 19th, I'll never forget it. We launched on the Apple App Store, and it was real at that moment in time, because my wife and my son and my family and the support that I had, and the desire to not fix but support others as well as my son, really shone through. And what that app does now is night and day from where it started. It's not just a visual routine app anymore, it's planning as well. So people, like myself, my wife's a speech language pathologist, and she understands everything across the alphabet soup to, like, the terminology and everything that happens. And she can go into an IEP meeting, which most people might not even know what an IEP meeting is when they're first diagnosed. And she can have those conversations with teachers and have those conversations with providers. I can't. You want to talk binary? You want to talk code? You want to talk product? You want to talk tech? Like, let's talk. Like, movies, my favorite thing in the world. Let's chat about that. I could talk about the binge watching the next episode of whatever I'm watching right now. But you want to talk about accommodations and objectives and goals? Like, over my head, because I'm not in that world. Most parents aren't. Most parents are not in that world, but they have to learn real fast, right? And they have to be able to advocate for their kids to get the services that they need. So I started building other tools within it, where parents, it meets them where they are. So, like, when you're first in the journey, it's called Vizy Advocate. It comes in and you tell them where you're at in your journey, and it starts to build out a playbook for you of what you need to ask, what you need to, what the process is going to be like, what the regulations are in this area, everything, right? It's not a legal advice. It's not a takeaway of your advocate. It's just a support and supplement to, is the way I look at it. Because we even had an advocate ourselves, and she was phenomenal. And I remember showing these things to our advocates and our BCBAs, and they're like, this is really powerful. Like, this is what it's doing is really incredible. And I wanted to make it extremely affordable, because like an advocate can cost you $1,500 to $2,000. It's incredible, and they're very valuable, and they earn every penny for what they're doing, right? But I wanted something that, if someone can't afford that, like what are some different tips and tricks and techniques that we could provide them with? And then I took it another step further. I was like, I'm getting all these emails from these providers and like and the teachers, and it's like, how do you get all this into one spot? Because it's just impossible to regulate it all and figure it all out. Because like I said, it is truly an alphabet soup. So I built in a provider module within there, that where the parents and the providers can, all the goals, objectives, and everything's easily translated and transcribed and made simple, put into the system, that the parent can now see all that information. And they can then take that information, and the system can then help support you with that based off of like what's happening. So it could say like, hey, based off of the support and the strengths and the weaknesses that we're seeing right now, this is some different things that you should be asking questions about, or potentially asking for accommodations on. And it became real at that moment.
One of the things that really strikes me about VizyPlan specifically is the fact, one of the things that I really liked about it was, one of the pain points that a lot of parents have is sleep deprivation, all of that stuff that goes along with that, right? Brain's not firing on all cylinders, or it's mushy, or like whatever you want to call it, when you just haven't slept in like 5 years. And then like you're expected, and you go into like an IEP meeting, or you go into a doctor's appointment, and depending on what is going on, or the relationship you have with either the school or whatever, it could be a really emotional, very stressful period of time, right? Like there's so many times where I'd walk into a meeting, and I had in my head like, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and then blanked, right? Just the stress and the anxiety and everything else. Like there's questions that I meant to ask that I forgot to ask. There's clarifying things that I wish that I had more documentation of what was said so that I can refer back to it. And VizyPlan has like a transcribing feature. So that, I mean, you navigate that however you need to in your area where you live and whatever you're doing. But like the idea that I really like is to be able to go to an appointment. My doctors do that now. They're like, hey, do you mind if I use an AI that just takes notes of everything and helps me to keep track of whatever? So fine with me, because that just improves my healthcare, right? Like I'm okay with that. And to be able to do something like that in one of these meetings, it means that you don't have to remember everything in the moment, right? You can go back later and you can review the transcript. Maybe it suggests key points or things to clarify, or whatever. But it's like an ally, and it's like a sounding board.
It does, yeah.
Like I don't need it to make decisions for me. I don't need it to do this or do that. But sometimes just being able to go back and forth it helps me to process things, right? And I see that being very useful for a lot of parents, to be able to go back and just review and not have to be like, oh, did I hear that wrong? Or have to always have like a second person there, so you have another pair of ears just to make sure that you remember things correctly. Like that's a huge pressure for parents that can be alleviated by a simple app. I mean, not a simple app, but by simply by using an app, right? I mean, that's huge. It's huge.
Thank you. Yeah, we always tell people, make sure you get consent when you're recording someone. It's in the app. It says, do you have consent? Because that's always a big thing. But at the end of the day, you've got a life, Rob. Your life is not catered around or focused completely only on just your kids' IEP meetings, and it's not you're not curving your entire life around the words that your provider just told you, because you've got grocery shopping, you've got life to live. So if there's a way to make it simple for you, where it takes the information and digests it and puts it in a easy format that's digestible and can make your life simple, like that was the goal behind it. And we don't train our models off of your children's data or your information. The model's already built out to take the information in and just help support you in every way, shape, or form. We're not here to collect data and try and make our models better. Like we're at that point where we the system is ready to help support you and meet you where you are. Your data is very important, and that's like a big thing to us. Um, and we have everything written out in our privacy and our terms so people can feel comfortable with the information they're putting into our system. But yeah, the transcriber is going to take that information and it's going to summarize it, and then it's going to tell you service gap potentials and questions to ask, and it's going to tell you like what could be some potential next steps that you could take. And it's on both sides, so it's not just for the parents. The providers have their own UI as well. So if you're a speech language pathologist, you could use the transcriber that's going to also suggest goals and objectives based on the conversation you're having with the parents. It's not a gotcha moment that the parents are like, I'm going to get my provider. It's a collaboration. It's a partnership, right? At the end of the day, like you're trying to fight for and advocate for your child, but also they're trying to provide you with the best services that they can with the resources that they have, right? So it's that meeting in the middle, and that's where the app is supposed to be that unbiased. Like, here's where you need to like ask for support, and as the provider, it's like, here's some things that you potentially could do to help support it. Because like we're all human. Not everyone's going to think of every scenario, the best goal or the best objective, but like the idea behind this is it's just there to support you and help you a little bit more, and that's where it meets you there.
And especially when it comes to our kids, right? And dads specifically, like we can be very protective. You know, I mean, moms are fiercely protective, but just like dad to dad, like, I think something like this helps to eliminate misunderstandings or clarify misunderstanding, right? Like, did I hear that right? Cause you know, and if you did, then you know how to address it. Right. And if you didn't, then it's like, it resolves an issue before there is one.
Yes.
You know, and I think that just, we're so tired and we're so overwhelmed. Anything that we can use to just, even if it's a backup or redundancy, right? Like it can be life altering in such a positive way because it takes one more thing off of your plate, right? You can redirect that bandwidth or that energy to something that maybe is more important, or you can walk out of the meeting not feeling so stressed out because you know that you have everything, you have record of it. You can go back home and you can read it, or you can read it with your spouse or partner, whatever the deal is. So that you have that information. And I think that it makes it better for everyone, right? The school, or, you know, I mean, it improves communication.
That's the hope. Yeah. And ultimately you bring up a good point, because really the idea behind this is it's like, what happens after diagnosis? Like at that point where we talked about how heavy that can be once you get that diagnosis, and like the what next, like this is the playbook after diagnosis. From it has social story creation within it. I don't know, some people are paying upwards of $150 to $500 to have stories created. This creates books of your child, and like what happens next, or they could be the hero of their own journey, and they could literally become the knight and you have a story that you can print out, and you can bring it anywhere with you. Like it has visual timers in the app as well. It's got calendaring. We're connected to Google Calendar and iCalendar for Apple, so you can use your own calendaring, and it will bring those activities into the system and create those activities for you that you can generate images based off of it. And if you don't feel comfortable putting your kids' images in there, there's automatic avatar images in there, or you can create your own. You can write a prompt out that says, this is what my son looks like, create this child likeness of my son, and it will do it. And then you can create the activities from there on out. So the idea behind it, and it's also got a co-pilot. So if you don't want to go in and create every activity, you could say, hey, this is what we typically do on a weekly basis, create out my schedule. And it'll do that for you. And then it'll create the images for you. So it meets you where you are. That really does.
Yeah, that's such a powerful thing. I remember, because when my kids were first diagnosed, it was back in the day of 3-ring binders. And
yes.
I mean, we had it was like that thick, right? And we had to carry it everywhere with us, doctor's appointments, everything. We had folders to hold paperwork and all kinds of stuff like that. So, I mean, I think, we're so enmeshed with our phones and our iPads and whatever, that it's almost a natural extension, and it increases our capacity to navigate some of these delicate or tricky situations in a way that maybe we're still tired, we're still worn out, maybe it still sucked, but like there's more of you left afterwards, right? You don't have to sit up at night wondering, did I hear that right? Did I whatever? I mean, like that's such a huge thing. The whole transcription thing is such a huge thing for me, just because with my ADHD, I always question what I remember from people. Like, did I hear that right? You know, because I just don't know. Or you can ask my girlfriend; she'll tell you like I don't read all the words. Like I get the gist of things, and a lot of times the gist is way off, right? And if I had just read like one more sentence, it would have, you know. But I like the fact that I have something to rely on to help navigate some of these things. And it doesn't replace a person.
No.
But there's times where like I just need this, or I just need this, or I just need to be able to bounce an idea off and just, you know, hear it back to me so that I can better address something or process things. And I just think it's a tool that is so useful for any number of scenarios that families like ours deal with on a regular basis. That I mean, it's huge. It's huge.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Yeah. The best way that I can describe it is I wanted a single source. And it doesn't do absolutely everything. This is not a silver bullet. This is not gonna, like the word fix it that we talked about a lot. This is not to fix any. It's a support tool. And I wanted to. I thought of every possible angle of things that I know that my son needed support with, and then we got feedback from the community as they started using it. It's been growing organically very fast, and it's one of those scenarios where a new feature comes because I want it all in one place. I don't want someone to have to go and download 6 apps to be able to get a transcriber, to get a calendaring app, to be able to get a visual planner, a storyboard option, a visual timer. It's like, let's put it all in one app. It's got regulation tools in there as well to help when you need a tactic or an exercise to help someone through a moment, and it has all that, and it has AI built into it too. So if you want to build out your happy place or just a calming technique, the idea behind it is your life changes so much in a moment. You should be able to just go to one place and be like, I can also do this here. And that was my vision when I built this product.
Well, and even if you had like 5 apps, they're not necessarily talking to each other, right? No. So you have information spread across different databases or whatever, and there's a disconnect. Correct. Right? Like I really like I was a huge fan of Outlook for the longest time because I had my calendar and my email all in one spot, right? Everything was connected, and it just frees up. It's more efficient, and it's just easier to have everything in one place, and we can store it all on our phone and not have to necessarily have that freaking binder. I think I still have mine. I need to take a picture of it. Because we had one for each of the kids, and Gavin, with all the medical stuff, I mean, he had multiple binders. So then it was like, well, which binder do we bring today for this? So I mean, it's just a whole thing that parents who are living this life can totally get what we're saying right now about that, and to have something that can streamline that and even just give you a little bit of bandwidth back or peace of mind is that's invaluable.
And I'm not comparing myself to an iPhone or an Android, but think back before iPhones and Androids and Samsungs and all those different brands existed, or Google phones. Like now, how many different things can you do with one phone, right? So the idea of having that single source is not, I didn't create it. It's not new. It's what people want. They don't want to have to go to a phone, to go to a calendar, to go to this, and have to use 1,000 different applications and tools. Like they want simple, and they want it in one place. And that's what I think has been lacking in the autism community. And that's what I've put the vision to try and build and have built, and I'm already on to phase 2 of what's coming next. And I think it's going to make a lot of people very excited about it.
What has the reaction been or feedback? Do you get people that are requesting things to help it work better for them? Like feature suggestions, stuff like that? How do you handle that?
It's a great question. We just had one recently. Someone said they live and breathe in Google Calendar. I then put the integration in, so Google Calendar's in there now. So you can now create that. That was an example, as I mentioned earlier. You can go into your Google Calendar, create an activity. It also recognizes if you put the child's name in there, it will put it to their profile specifically. If not, it's going to put it across the family or the profiles you have that you've created. And that activity is now in there. If you want it shared, you can also make it private. I don't want this activity in there. And the idea behind it was it makes people's life easier because if they don't want to have to calendar in multiple apps, now it's already in there, and then the image is there ready. They can see it and show their child, like, this is what we're doing today. Like we had on this, I put in my Google Calendar, we're going to the zoo. It's in VizyPlan. They go into VizyPlan, they see the zoo there, and then it's like, you show your child, this is what we're doing today. They see themselves going to the zoo. Like, the idea behind it, that came from feedback from someone using the app.
So how much of the app is for parents and versus the kid, I guess, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it's a great question. So in the autism community, because you've got so many different levels and you've got different variations of autism and neurodivergent children, it's for everyone. So like the idea behind it is if you've got a child who can't set up scheduling, you as a parent or caregiver can set that up for them. I've got autistic um, adults now in their 20s that are using the app because they like to schedule themselves out and they like having a routine and they like to use it that way. So they're using it for those purposes. They also use the advocate for different things that they want to use and navigate in their life and ask questions to it. Uh, I never built it for just one specific age group. It was built so that, again, to meet you where you are. So like if there's a child that wants to use the app, they technically could if the parent wants them to use the app. If not, like, it has limitations and guidance and the ability for you to limit what they can and can't see. And then as a parent, uh, I'd say the vast majority of people using it today are typically parents and providers, but there are some that are teenage and adults with autism that will use it.
Yeah, and I like the social story aspect of it too, because I was playing around with the new image creation, and it's really good. The running joke in my family is like, Apple Intelligence. They have the image playground now,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I could take my kids, whoever, and put them in there, and they make these like amazing pictures. You put my picture in, and it's like I come out with three heads, or it's just and Aria gets the biggest kick out of the images that it creates because they're just awful, right? They do me dirty every time.
Sure, they're fun.
And so I kind of expected that. And when I put a picture in to test out the story creation, it was fast for one thing. I didn't expect that, and it was actually like, okay, like that'll work. It's pretty yeah, it's pretty accurate, and I can imagine as a kid, if it's going to the dentist or whatever, right? You can dress yourself up as a superhero or like whatever it is that how your child wants themselves represented, and then they're conquering this task, right? And so it helps them to not only prepare for it, but to kind of be in the right headspace to feel maybe a little more confident, right? Like, hey, I can do this kind of thing, and that's so important, and to have that all included in that is huge, because I have yet to find an easy, reliable, affordable way for people to just create social stories. I mean, there's some out there, but not. And again, it would be a separate app, right?
It would be.
This is like a suite, all integrated, and you just have to remember the one thing. You know what I mean? That's for my chaotic life. That would have been life changing.
And that's it. That you've hit the nail on the head there, right? Most people won't turn to an app when scenarios in life are happening because there's too many out there. But if you had something that was like your go-to that had multiple different structures of support in it, like, you're gonna think of it more often than not. And yeah, thank you for the kind words on the image generation. We've done a lot with it. Typically it's under 10 seconds. Like, usually within 5 seconds, you're getting that image pretty quickly. And we also offer multiple images, so now you can choose between which one you think is more accurate or depicting of the scenario. And just like anything, the more information you feed into it, like, I want a beautiful sunset that has, pink clouds. And the more that you describe, the better the image is going to depict, and the better that it's going to hit the accuracy that you're looking for. But it's been a great journey, and it's really exciting to see people happy and using the app and saying such kind words like you just mentioned.
So what is the best way for people to connect and learn more?
Yeah. So we are all over social media at this point. So we've got our own blog that has all different types of information that's helpful from A to Z of, pre-diagnosis, post-diagnosis in life. That's on VizyPlan.com. We also have information directly on the website. And there's if you're going to use the app, it's on the Apple App Store under VizyPlan. If you type it in, it'll come up as our routine planning apps. And then we're also, if you don't have an Apple phone, that's not a problem. We also have a web mobile application, which is right on our website, VizyPlan. You can go right on there and sign up and log in right through your computer or through your phone as well. So we're trying to make this as easy as we can possibly make it for people to be able to use it. We will be on the Google Play Store but by the end of this month, early next month. So we'll let everyone know once we're there as well. And the idea is just to have it readily available whenever people need it. But yeah, if you go to VizyPlan.com, it has a lot of information for you.
What does this cost a month?
$9.99.
Okay. And is that per user, or can you that's everybody that connects to your?
No a la carte here. It's your whole family, your profiles within it. You have full access to every feature we've mentioned on this podcast today.
And the ones that are coming in the future probably too, because
there's a lot coming out that I can't quite tell everyone about yet, but it's very exciting. We've got a lot of stuff that's on the horizon here.
You've been kind enough to give my listeners a 30-day free trial, so you can test it out. You just use the code, the Autism Dad. I'll have it all in the description and links and all that stuff there too, so you'll be able to just click. But that way there's no risk, right? You can just try it. If it's not a fit for you, then fine, that's fine too. But if it is, it could be a really positive thing. And $10 a month doesn't even buy a pizza anymore. Really. I mean, I saw, I was shopping. There was a box of cereal that was almost $10 yesterday. Yeah. That's insane. So it's very, very, very affordable. And for everything that you're getting, I mean, it really is. It's like a passion project for you, it seems like.
It is. It's 100% a passion project. I wanted it to be available and affordable for everyone, because you're already paying for I pay for my child's out services for them to go see their OT, their SLP, and all the different services that you're paying for. It's just, there's a lot. People are spending more money than ever now. So the best thing that I possibly could do is figure out how can I make this affordable so everyone can have access to it. And that's been my main focus. And yeah, Rob, you've been amazing. Your audience, the community that you've built, it's incredible to see. And I'm more than happy to supply the Autism Dad code so people get 30 days free, because what you're doing is amazing.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you doing that, because I know a lot of parents, a lot of families, money is tight, and we have to make decisions about, okay, if we do this, then where are we going to pull that from, whatever. So I like the fact that they could try it and actually get a handle on it before deciding whether it's a good fit for their family. That to me, that speaks from the perspective of a parent who gets it. So I appreciated that too. That was really, I like that approach, especially within our community. So thank you for that.
Happy to offer it.
So I'll have all the information and links in the show notes so people can click and find you. And yeah. So thank you for everything that you're doing. I really appreciate it. And you guys can find all that. Again, all the information is in the show notes, so you can go check out whatever you need to check out, and then go from there. So
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Rob. I appreciate it.
Before we go, I just want to take a quick second and say thank you guys for taking the time to tune in today. I really appreciate it. I am so excited about this new season and all the Seen and Heard episodes that you guys are going to have coming your way over the coming weeks. Thank you, Kelly, for taking the time to do this together. I really appreciate it. I love you. Thank you for everything. And yeah, good stuff, guys. So we will talk soon. Have a great week, and catch you later.